right, in about 30 seconds or a minute, we'll be beginning again, so please find your way back to your tables. We have students with us, and we are so eager to hear from them. All right, welcome back. So before we move on, I want to thank Casey Gwynn for your inspiring words. And we want to take those final words, our future can be brighter than our past, and take that and let it live in our hearts and carry us forward into a new legislative session, into a new future for our kids. So as we begin this next session, our partners for today's summit is the Office of Juvenile Affairs and its extraordinary Executive Director, Stephen Buck. By the way, it is Stephen Buck's birthday. Yay, happy birthday. Stephen has a great heart for our kids and helping them through challenges that they face. OJA's director, he has been OJA's director since 2016. Stephen also serves on the governor's cabinet as Secretary of Health and Human Services. He has previously been the Deputy Commissioner of the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services and spent 10 years with the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So please join me in welcoming Stephen Buck.
It is an extraordinary honor to be here. I have been asked to give just a few moments of remarks, and I will do so, and then I will quickly yield to the more important role I have today, which is to serve as a moderator for these three bright and talented young people as they walk us through some of their experiences that we think will be beneficial as part of the learning agenda for this summit. Superintendent Hoffmeister, I really value your leadership in putting this summit together, and I would just share with you that it has been an honor to work with your extraordinary staff who have worked very diligently to make this summit a reality. And to the teachers, the educators in the room, yeah, let's applaud for her staff. To the teachers, educators, administrators, counselors in the room, to colleagues from state government who work for the Department of Human Services, and then my team from the Office of Juvenile Affairs, and to other stakeholders that may be in the room, thank you for taking such an important period of time from your day to learn about something that is so extraordinarily important for the future of our state, for the well-being of our communities, for the happiness of our families, and the economic success and vibrancy of our state moving forward. I wanted to make a couple of observational thoughts with my Office of Juvenile Affairs hat on, because as the director of that agency, I get to experience at the back end what happens far too frequently when many of the topics we're talking about today do not get the appropriate attention and diligence. There are three primary characteristics of young people who enter into the care of my agency that I typically see as I evaluate case file to case file. And those three would include significant family disruption and dysfunction, children who have been involved in the child welfare system, for example, or the fact that mom or dad has been incarcerated and in prison, or any other number of circumstances where the home has been absent a specific caring, mentoring adult. We heard about that conversation in the previous speaker. Relationships do matter. And for far too many of my kids, those healthy relationships that point to a thriving adolescence and early adulthood are missing. We also know that for many of our kids, and for their families, importantly to note, that there is an absence of access to mental health and substance abuse treatment. And that would specifically be true for our adult parents who walk through the pathway of addiction, and that help they need is just not there. Or, unfortunately, the treatment that does arrive comes in the form of a jail cell. This is a situation that is a significant, persistent presenter in the kids that we see in juvenile affairs. And the third element that would be a common would be that the kids that we serve have frequently not been engaged in academic progression. They haven't been active in the classroom. Because of behaviors and choices made, they have been excused from their school and not had the opportunity to participate in the educational environment. That's a hard, complex conversation, and I understand that. But we know as a predictor that kids who are actively engaged in the classroom learning have a very, very much significantly higher opportunity for long-term success. You take those three common threads and you weave in the underpinnings of poverty, and between those four you really see a composite of the kids who will navigate into the care of our system. I'm very fortunate to work with the staff at OJA that believes that rehabilitation is our greatest mission, and we work very diligently to do what we can to help young people prepare to return to the community with their ability to succeed educationally, vocationally, to have healthy relationship, and to have their health status met. But I believe as a state that we will be far better served when we can actually have conversations about closing my agency because kids are no longer getting in trouble with law enforcement. Remember, I exist because the agency exists because kids have made bad choices and broken the law. This summit and the learning from this summit will take a significant bite out of that apple. And maybe if I were to see you in 10 years, I could speak to you about an agency of a much, much smaller size. So that's the context I wanted to add to the conversation. I feel very honored to be here. And I want to honor each of you who is a stakeholder for the role you play, because it will take a community, it will take a commitment to relationship to do this work successfully. So with that said, I'm going to transition to my moderator role, and we will start our student panel. So it will not surprise you that my three panelists are a little bit anxious. I will tell you, I was a little bit anxious when I walked in and saw this room. This is an incredible, incredible audience. So we schemed a little bit in the quiet room, and we decided that maybe the right way for us to start their presentation, for my panelists who want to, was to take a selfie of themselves with the audience in the background to remind themselves of what a great, brave thing they're doing today. So Superintendent, if you'll join us, we want to give them a chance to do that. See, there's a lot of smiles out there, aren't there? It's a friendly audience. Thank you, Superintendent, for allowing us that, and thank you for members of the crowd for indulging that opportunity. It's really incredible. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves as we walk through this, and the first question will be just kind of your icebreaker. You know, give your name, maybe a little bit of what you're doing now and what your career ambitions and goals might be. Before you do that, though, I want to tell you, we actually had a fourth panelist who was unable to join us today. He was in transit, and unfortunately, his ride, the family had a family emergency and actually had a death in their family, so they had to turn around and drive back. So I'm going to represent Jimmy's voice to some degree because I thought it was very important to honor Jimmy and the fact that he had prepared to be here and had some specific remarks. I would also share with you with this, and I told these three young people on the conference call that we did to prep for this. These are their stories. And as members of the audience, I know you will respect the fact that these are their stories. And not only is it brave to sit in front of a panel of 800 people and make comments, it's doubly brave when you sit in front of a crowd at 800 and you make comments when the topic of the agenda is trauma. So for members of the crowd, we appreciate you supporting today's event with social media. But I want you to be very respectful that the stories and things that might be shared today are these young people's stories. And I hope that you will respect that, and I hope you will acknowledge that in anything that you would share. We made that deal, right? Okay. So we have set that ground rule moving forward. So Jimmy, what Jimmy would want you to know, and what I'll tell you about Jimmy as a way of introduction, Jimmy is currently finishing his high school degree at the Thunderbird Youth Academy in Pryor, which is outstanding. And what Jimmy said is we had this exchange with Jimmy, and we were talking back and forth, and what I know that he is passionate about knowing is that from his past and the experiences he has had, he has two career paths that are in mind for him. His immediate career path is that he would like to be able to join the armed services. That's something that he would value and have the chance to do. That's why he's electing to finish his education at Youth Academy, is to get a sense of what that experience might be like. But his long-term ambition is Jimmy is very, very focused on the opportunity to participate in ministry, specifically using his experiences through the medium of rap, to be able to speak to young people who had similar backgrounds and to share his story through that medium. So that's what Jimmy asked me to say in response to the first question. So with that, I'm going to yield to you. Introduce yourself and share a little bit about what the audience should know about where you're at today and what your ambitions are.
Okay, I'm Carrie Hampton, and I go to Rose here in Midwest City. I graduated from Dell City, so I know some Mid-Dell people from the public schools over there. They know me. Hi, guys. And my career choice, well, I am majoring in English right now at Rose, so I want to be a romance novelist, which is really funny when people ask me, because I'm always that specific, because they always say, do you want to be a writer? I'm like, no, I want to be a romance novelist. And with that, I mean, I know that type of work is kind of hard. I think I'm good, but you never know. So, like, if I had a backup, it would be an English professor. So, that's pretty much it, I guess.
I'm Marissa McGeehee. I'm at Rose State also. I'm studying for sociology so I can be a social worker, so I can help kids and their community if they had a bad background. My goals, I just want to help kids that were in my position. So.
My name is David Berry, and I attended Classen School of Advanced Studies, graduated from there, and now I'm a freshman in OSU OKC. And I was pretty much a jack of all trades, like performer, sports, pretty much the typical boy life, except not typical. But my current aspirations is to become a child psychologist. I feel that that would help me help others who have been in my positions in the past. And so yeah, that's pretty much that.
So the first, that was your icebreaker question. The next question we are going to ask is, by being on stage and agreeing to participate today, you each have experienced a significant trauma event or events in your background. I mean, that's part of our conversation today. And again, those are your stories, and that's not up for us to rehash unless it's something you want to talk about. But because that's our focus today, one of the questions that we wanted to explore related to as you navigated through school. I mean, you're all in college, so it's clear you have done a trajectory of learning. As you navigated through school, can you specifically talk about ways that a teacher, an administrator, a school counselor, a classroom aide, anybody in the educational setting, can you specifically talk about a way that they helped address your trauma in a way that allowed you to be successful? And they may not even have known that you were wrestling with trauma, but just something that they did that really helped you be successful. So it's an opportunity to demonstrate to our audience some of the unique ways that people involved in education have made a difference? And I'll start and let you know what Jimmy wrote to that question, and that may help you get your mind further around what you would like to say. Jimmy's response to the question was this: when I had an issue arise, they were willing to let me go into a room, giving me time to reflect, and they let me decide if I wanted to talk about it or not. When they let me sit quietly, allowed me the time to deal with what I was feeling, and allowed me to get my focus back and not spend the rest of the school day upset. And so that was Jimmy's response to what had made a difference in his classroom experience. And so I'm going to let you walk through this, and I may have a couple of follow-up questions just on something you say that I think may be of interest to me or to the audience. So I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, I think with me it was that we always just kind of had sessions where, I don't know if it was sessions, but it would just like be moments in time where I was involved with like groups, and we would have like, I don't know, moments where we would do certain activities. So the activities would kind of like get things kind of like flowing, like the conversations, and like people would be talking. And so we do things like a privilege walk, or the other activities where it kind of makes you emotional. So we always kind of had moments where we were kind of just like going into conversations, and like no one really said anything like very personal, but kind of like you would just get like a sense that something, like people were going through things, and there would just be some kind of agreement. So I guess just the opportunity for them to get the conversation started was something that I was able to go through, because you could kind of tell like other people were going through some stuff as well, so it wasn't like you were alone. So I would say that was something that they did.
Okay, so can I ask a follow-up question? I think I heard you say that one of the steps was a privilege walk.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, I usually do this in groups, because when I was in high school, I was really involved in like StuCo and leadership and stuff. So we'd have like days where we would, in the class, like do little small things like this. And so you kind of get everybody lined up. And I came from Del City, so it's a pretty diverse school, but you always, like, you're with the same people that you've been with since elementary. So it's kind of like you know each other, but when you do small stuff like this, you don't really know what people are going through till they kind of like speak up. And so get everybody in a line, and you guys kind of like start back on a line or whatever, and then the moderator will like call out, if you experience this or such and such, like step forward, or if not, then stay where you are. And then so it started off small stuff like, do you have books in your home, or do you have one parent, or do you have two parents, or your parents still married? And I mean, I have two parents and they're still married, so I would step up. But some of my friends, like one of my friends, her parents aren't together anymore, so she would have to stay back. And so it's kind of like a game where you are able to reflect on what kind of privileges you have, and what kind of things that I don't want to say don't have, but just kind of things that some people got instead of you. And so like the whole book thing, like I had books, but some people in my class, they didn't really have books, or like there's some questions, like it varies from question to question, but it's just kind of like you get to see it towards the end, you get to see who's kind of like in front and who's still behind. And I was always in the middle. I was never like always in the back, but I was like always in the middle. So I was always like never at the top, but I was never in the back too. So I was kind of okay, but it's also like I have some friends that were in the back, so it just makes you realize that you guys are like still friends, but you're different because you go through the same stuff. But I mean, you think you're the same because you go to the same school, but you don't know who's really dealing with something back there than the people who got what you didn't have up at the front. So it's kind of like that.
Thank you. Are you ready? Okay.
I did have this favorite teacher of mine at Norman North. Her name was Tanika Evans, and God bless her heart, because she was just so wonderful. She was our online teacher, and I don't know, she just helped. She just put so much effort into everybody. She took me out to eat sometimes, took me to get my hair done sometimes. She really took care of me. But this woman, Janita Osmani, over there in the crowd. She is such an amazing woman. She is so strong, because she makes me strong. At the end of the day, she pushes me to be strong, because I've been through a lot to where, I don't know, the school and everything, I was kicked out of my apartment, I was robbed. I don't know, she helped me get through a lot of hard times. Like,
So between those two examples, and there's tissue. Between those two examples, relationship was extremely important for you. The value of having a specific trusted person is
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
I never really had anybody I could run to or anything like that. And I don't know, God, He sent me down this path. This was for me. Even though through all the struggles, that's just life. He put these people in my life. She always says I have somebody in my corner, even though I feel like I don't. I just have to realize. But she's always been there for me, which is, it's been hard. She's done more things for me than my own father has done for me, which says a lot. So.
And your turn.
Well, my high school, it was middle and high school, and it only had about a little under 1,000 kids. So this may have been easier for my school than it was for others, say like UConn, which has almost 3,000 high school. So at my school, everyone knew each other. You know, I mean, teachers, staff, students. We even knew the lunch ladies. I don't know if that's an issue, but like everyone knew each other, and so it was easy to eventually have someone to be able to go to. In my case, I had several. I had a couple teachers in the history department, one of which was my eighth grade U.S. history teacher, who I was able to go with her a lot, and another teacher I had throughout high school who was Oklahoma history, government, all that. Both of those teachers were kind of like a backbone for me to be able to go to, along with a few other teachers who knew me well, and just we all kind of had a good what's the word? Just like a good stabilized relationship other than just teacher-student. And so I also was able to connect with my counselors very well, and they would just, everyone in my school is pretty much, staff-wise, phenomenal in some sorts. So I feel in smaller schools that's just easier, and in bigger schools there's less of the opportunity to have that. In some sense, though, smaller schools can have their bad effects. Well, we can get to that later. But yeah, for me, I was just able to connect with someone wherever I went.
So one of the things you specifically mentioned was connection with school counselor, right? And that was an important element. So maybe as a follow-up conversation that I might have for you is, you've already yielded you're a smaller school, so things look a little bit different. You understand what that may be like, but how accessible was the ability to visit with your counselor, regardless whether it's future academic plans, whatever the case may be? Was that something that was readily available and encouraged?
As long as it wasn't around finals. If it was finals, they were gone. But if they were gone like in advance, there would be like a note on a door or something like that saying, okay, hey, I'm gone from this time to this time, or I'm going to, like, say, Texas. One of our counselors always went to Texas for some reason. Like, they would come back, and then it's just like, well, how is Texas? Oh, well, everything's bigger there. Yeah, so as long as we had, like, all that, we were pretty much good. We also had email, so that was also pretty well, although students and emails don't mix very well. But yeah.
So thank you each for the response to that round. I'm going to do something unfair, and that's I'm going to add a fourth question, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you now so you can start thinking about One of the things as you went through your introduction, one thing that impressed me very much is you are all college level learners. And so you've navigated through K through 12, and now you're college level learners. So the question I'll finish with, and you can start thinking about it, it's not a hard question, is now that you're in college, I'll ask you to kind of talk about what that transition looked like between high school and college, because they're very different environments. And so we'll come back to that question. And that's both a positive and a negative. You can feel that however you want to. But we're going to come back to that question in a minute. Okay? So the next question, and this will be the hardest question I ask of them today, in my opinion, because what we are going to do now is explore, as they navigated through their school experience, perhaps a time that the educational community could have been more assistive as they wrestled with whatever trauma is they were wrestling with, right? So, I mean, this is that time where maybe there was a red flag that was missed, or maybe somebody sought out help. And I don't know what their answers are going to be, so we will work this as we go. But this is that question where there was a missed opportunity that somehow might have thrown a road bump. Now, obviously, these are resilient kids, so we know that the successful part of the story is they persevered. But I think we can learn from that. And so that'll be the question we're wrestling. As you went through your school, when was there an opportunity missed to help in a trauma-informed way with your own experiences? And again, to set the tone, I'll read what Jimmy sent for us to make sure that we read into the record. There have been times when a teacher, principal, someone in authority didn't let me have that quiet time to think. And you remember his reference was Jimmy needed the ability to step away for a couple of minutes. I've had people in the past that told me to get over it because I wasn't the only person having problems. When that happens, I became irritated, have a negative attitude, and lose focus on what I am supposed to be doing. It made it hard to refocus on what I needed to accomplish the rest of that day. But Jimmy adds, and this is where that resilience comes in. As I have gotten older, I have developed the ability to leave my problems outside of school and focus on the task at hand. I have learned that it's all in a person's mindset and up to the individual to not be impulsive and develop discipline to stop and think before I or they act. And I think that speaks to a lot about what we know about prefrontal cortex development, right? There was a time not able to process that. But as he's matured, in Jimmy's case, a lot of those skills became more natural, and he was able to incorporate those into his day. So that was Jimmy's contribution. So again, the question we're kind of working around is missed opportunities as you navigated through your educational process. And I should tell you, this could be lack of collaboration between a DHS social worker in the school. It could be any number of things, but we know that you've all navigated through the school system. So kind of think through what that might be and how we could have done it better.
Do I have to go right now, or can we come back to me?
Are you comfortable starting with that one, or do you need some more time to think about it?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Okay.
We'll go this way.
Okay.
Well, so earlier I said how everyone pretty much knew each other, middle school and high school. In some cases, that's in starting years at class in like 6th grade, everyone's pretty ambitious, get to know people, all that, and it can lead to, I don't know, you guys know how kids are, rumors, gossip, spreads, and all of that. I mean, you probably, it's not something that you can really stop, but it's something that you can teach others, hey, if this is happening, don't be, just don't join in. And that was probably a big issue. One of the biggest issues in my time, 6th through 8th grade, was rumor spreading and all that. One instance I had to deal with was I had a who would be considered a stepfather figure in my younger years. My father was in jail till about my ninth grade year. This stepfather figure, who I wouldn't call stepfather, but for the sake of this, I will say so. But he was in my life from about when I was 3 years old to 8, and things didn't really get bad with him until I was 5 years old, and he was verbally abusive, physically abusive, et cetera, et cetera. Well, at some point in my 6th grade year, it was about around this time, October, and he had, I wasn't living with my parents. I have a set of legal guardians who I live with, and he called one day and had a conversation with me, which I didn't expect, and just basically said how he's getting out of jail soon and wants to reconnect and have a healthy relationship, apologize, blah, blah, blah. It didn't set well in me. And it began to definitely take a heavy toll on me throughout my 6th and 7th grade years. And it just got to the point where I was very just not as good of a student as I was previously. And so it affected a lot of friendships of mine and all that. And eventually it got to the point where I was pretty much separated from some of my peers and all that, and just led to just a lot of bad feelings on my part. And it wasn't entirely attacked in a good way until about my 8th grade year. So it took about 2 years to finally get around to it, in which I was finally regularly seeing a counselor. I finally had a teacher I was able to talk to, my U.S. history teacher in 8th grade, and ended up exploring different avenues and different paths, and finally was in a place where things were not only getting better, but I was being active in my school instead of just like, oh, these students here, I'm just gonna, go home, do my own thing. So that was, for me, pretty much Odelia there.
Can I ask you a follow-up question on that? I mean, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade years are complex years, right?
Yeah.
Not only are you exploring with you mentioned incarcerated father and all of this, that's also the years that kids just do quirky things, right? I mean, that's a hard time developmentally
Teenagers
for
are
kids.
crazy.
Do what?
Teenagers are crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean, so all of this was happening at a really chaotic time. And you mentioned specifically a history teacher, right? Mm-hmm. Who really anchored with you. Without giving that history teacher name, can describe what the characteristics were like for that teacher. I mean,
she was very passionate about history, and just very forthcoming, like just very talkable. I actually, my first semester in her class, I passed with a D, and she realized I was, I had more potential and stuff like that. And there was this competition called National History Day, and we all years of middle school and high school, I think except for junior and senior year, you're kind of forced to make a project for your history class, whichever one it may be, but and it's optional for you to compete. My 8th grade year, I think due to that teacher, I decided to compete, partially because extra credit. Extra credit's great. You no longer receive that in college. But that had led me to competing, in which that was part of the bond between me and my U.S. history teacher, was the fact that I competed, and also just the fact that she knew that I was, better than what I was performing through my first semester. So through the second semester, I was much more attentive in the classroom, also very excited about competing in such an academic field of competition, in which I made it to nationals that year, going to DC. and competing there, where I don't remember. I think I scored 8 nationally, 8th place. But it was a great thing, and through that, just being able to have extra experiences with this teacher was great. But enough about that. The teachers who you asked about, she's a great woman. I don't really know what else to say other than just she knows how to connect with kids, and it's too bad she's an 8th grade teacher, but at the same time probably good because transition to high school. But like if you had her as a 6th grader, she'd probably just something she'd be able to attack then and there, and then just you would be able to have a greater experience. But probably all is well with her being an 8th grade teacher, because transition to high school.
So congratulations, that's really awesome. And I don't know if you've ever had a chance to tell her how much of a trajectory changer she was for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
She knew.
Okay. Well, I'm glad she knows, and maybe she's in the room, or maybe she gets a chance to watch the live stream. But I'm glad you highlighted that, because I think those success stories happen every single day in extraordinary ways. So thank you for illustrating that. That was very, very well done. All right, it's your turn. Are you ready?
My bad. You said live stream. I got scared.
I was worried. I was doing so well.
Okay. I remember my junior year, my first junior year. I dropped out twice because I was homeless. But being homeless for me is like going getting gas. I don't know, like, it was just so hard for me if I didn't have like a real home, something I could go home to. It wasn't a good environment anywhere that I was at. And so why would I want to go to school? That's just so much more extra on me. I didn't want to go. And when I did go, I was drinking one time, and I got suspended for 45 days. So I dropped out twice the same year. I got suspended, so I got held back that year. And I don't know, that's when I turned over to OJA during the summer before school started. And then, I don't know, they just have a good system behind them to help kids, which is important. But I was able to finish two school years into 1 year at an alternative school. So I finally graduated with my class. And Miss Janita Osmani, she talked me into going to college, which is something I never thought I'd do. And I thank you for that.
So I'll remind the audience, these are their kids' stories. And I trust that you will respect the nature of those stories. You talked about your OJA involvement. It's very important for us to re-articulate. That's history, and your future is your future. So you were very brave for saying that. I want to acknowledge that. You talked about you were caught drinking at school, and it resulted in a 45-day suspension, right? So a question that I have in follow-up to that is, and we haven't talked about this, I don't know the circumstances, but as you were going through the suspension process, and you can understand alcohol at school is an important issue. It's something that is a significant safety issue. It's a public safety issue. But as you were going through the expulsion process, was there conversations or connections that were made about where you might go for treatment for substance use or anything like that? Was that afforded to you as part of that process?
No, they really didn't offer me anything to try to help me. But like they offered me like counseling if I wanted to come back to school earlier than that 45 days, just to go to a counseling class so you can get back in school. but I still wouldn't have made it even if I did get back in school, like, 20 days before or something. I wouldn't have made it.
Okay. Well, thank you again for sharing that important context there. All right, now are you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Well, can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
You bet. And so the question stems around, we talked earlier about how schools had been supportive in helping you address past trauma. That was our second question. So this question relates to missed opportunities that perhaps somebody, whether it's school or a caseworker from DHS or whatever the case may have been, or for an OJA worker, whatever applies to your story. A missed opportunity where the trauma you have experienced could have been addressed and the road you traveled been a little bit easier as you pursued your education.
Okay, well, I feel like with me when I was, well, like middle school wise, well, my trauma happened during middle school. But with that, it was, I don't think I ever, well, I was just so young that I never really just said anything. It was just like, I kind of just like, it happened and then I kind of just like kept going with it. And so I never really like did anything. I kind of just, that's probably what I do right now. Like I kind of just work, and then like kind of let my problems kind of push them on the back burner and just keep going. And so with that, high school wise, I was really involved. Like I said, I was always involved and I was pretty high on like the student standard or whatever. I was valedictorian, and so I think with just my ambitions during school, I never really like let problems like last kind of long. I never was like, I don't know, I don't want to say like outbursts, but I never had moments where I was like, well, if I was like really upset, I never like really like let it show. So I kind of never really said anything, so no one was really like checking up on me or anything like that. I kind of just like, I feel like I kind of masked it when I was just being really involved. So it was never like, okay, are you okay? It was kind of just like, keep going. And I think, of course, people asked me if I was okay, but I kind of just said like the typical answer, like yes. I never was like, oh, well, I'm dealing with something. Can I like talk or anything? And I think I was never really open with what happened until like senior year. It was like towards the end. And I told one of my teachers, and it was like, it was cool, but it was like, it was kind of not an assignment kind of, but it's just kind of like senior year we had to do something. It was like, what was it? It was kind of like an assignment where we were supposed to talk about it, like a controversial issue towards the class and like getting a grade for it. And then she had an option to whether we wanted to do this or do like a senior thank you for like a teacher or whatever. And of course I chose the senior thank you because I didn't want to talk about the event in class or whatever, but she was saying like pick either or, so I picked the other one. But then I did the other assignment and I just said it to her, and then kind of like I had a moment in class and it was fine, but that had been like the first time I had talked about it in like forever. So it was just, I never really just said anything, so no one really like knew that I was dealing with anything. I think that was probably just my part, but in the question that was there anything they could have done, I don't really know because I didn't really do anything myself. So
okay, so I just want to think through that. I mean, just kind of walk that through. So you were managing fairly well, right? I mean, you were doing great, right? And so that's often the case with trauma. Sometimes it takes years for it to show. Sometimes it shows very quickly. So kind of your thoughts on what we're doing here today, because the conversation today is becoming more trauma informed in what we do. So do you have thoughts about the value of educating us across all levels of engagement with kids to be able to spot signs of warning signs, and then maybe being able to step in earlier rather than later? You're remarkably resilient. You're incredibly impressive. But there's something that you have to wrestle with. Is this a good step, or are there other things you think we might do?
I guess in my case, I would think maybe if you see, I don't know, maybe if like you kind of see a kid not acting like themselves one day, maybe like how I said I was really involved and I was pretty active. Maybe if one day I showed a bit more that I was upset, that would probably be an idea, like kind of just to check up on. But it also, I guess I could say, just kind of have moments where you can like reach out to a kid and just see if they're okay. Like maybe they didn't show any signs, but just maybe just ask like, are you doing okay? Like I see you're pretty active, but are you okay? Like is everything okay at home? Or are you just doing all this because you're trying to distract yourself from doing other things? Maybe, I don't know, kind of like maybe start the conversation, because a lot of kids won't really say anything. Like me in my case, I didn't really say anything until like the conversation kind of got started. So I guess start a conversation. That sounds cheesy, but I guess.
No, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure I understood. The response is, don't always assume this just because somebody's doing very well that there aren't burdens that they're carrying. And being willing to check in frequently, even though those who appear to be doing well, is an important thing.
Yep.
All right. You said it much better than I did, I promise.
Probably didn't, but thanks.
So I told you I was going to return to this fourth question, which we didn't talk about on our conference call. Again, it was just one of those things that, yeah, I've got 3 resilient kids here with me who are college learners. I mean, that's really, really awesome. Kind of talk about that transition from K through 12 education, graduating high school, and then going into the college environment. Can you just any brief observations you can make? Has the college environment more challenging, or are there services there that you can access? Those kind of questions.
Okay. With me, I've always gone to school in that Midway City, Del City area, so it was cool. I've always been a pretty good student. And so it was easy, like going through school, like getting A's, of course. Of course, I got a couple B's, but that's just in science class, you know, just in science class. But I'm not a science major, so that doesn't matter. And so pretty much K through 12 was good. I had some good teachers. I had good school, so it was awesome. Going through college-wise, I chose Rose State because, I mean, I'm a middle-class family, so we didn't really have a lot of money. And my parents both worked for the government, and so of course we didn't have like the whole FAFSA thing. Like I don't get any money from FAFSA, so they told me that. So I was like, okay. So I currently work 2 jobs right now, and just doing that, I kind of like just being involved in school is what got me into the Rose PLC, which is the President's Leadership class or whatever, and I've been doing that. And since I did go to the middle schools, Rose is free for me for the first 2 years, and so I kind of just chose there because it had all the signs like free, free, free. So I kind of just took that route, and so I'm going there, and it's really good. Like I don't feel like it's big, kind of like when you get on the campus, it's kind of big. Like there's people that I still don't even know go there. And I'm like, you go here? They're like, I've seen you. I'm like, I have not seen you. And so it's like a small campus, like for community-wise, but they have a really big perspective on it, like having a university experience. So I feel really good there. They do have free counseling there, and I've taken the choice to go. I actually go see my therapist tomorrow. So I will tell her about this experience. She's really awesome. And with her, it's like, and then they have therapy dogs, and I'm not really a dog person, but they have the cutest white fluffy dog. I have a picture on my phone, but it's the cutest dog ever. And she just walks around with the other therapist lady. It's just really nice. She's just so cute. Oh, did my mic? Oh, sorry. And so I'm taking the choice to do that, and with her, it's a cool experience. Like we kind of sit together like this in the couch, and she just sits and talks to me, and I tell her a bunch of stuff, and every time I tell her, and when I'm there, I'm like, I feel like I'm rambling. She's like, I'm just here to listen, which is good. And I just tell her stuff, and she gives me some ways to, like, some steps, and she just helps me out. And she tells me things. She's like, you're a smart girl. And I'm like, thank you. And she just tells me that I probably shouldn't get into situations that I'm in now. And I'm like, you're right. I just need someone to tell me that. And so going to her is awesome. Transitioning college-wise, like just the schoolwork in general, like I only don't like my one class, and you can guess it's my science class. I don't think I'm doing well in that class, but you know, it'll be okay. And just going through from college, I kind of like just growing up wise, 'cause I do have 2 jobs, just like growing up and knowing now that I'm kind of like an adult and like everything costs money. I have to figure out what I'm really going to spend my money on, and I have to figure out how to save and stuff. So it was kind of crazy, like just meeting so many new people. Like you just meet a bunch of new people every day, and then just like new experiences throughout college. And I'm just kind of learning how to deal with it all. The therapist really helps, and I'm just kind of taking it step by step. That's it.
Growing up K through 12, it was okay. Struggles hit me in about middle school when I lost my mother. So that was my whole world right there. So imagine the world exploding. So I don't know. That still it carries with me today. It's just so hard. But I don't know, it's everything, it's all an experience. Not a good experience, but college is way better. I don't know, I never seen myself at college until Janita, she talked me into it. And I'm glad that I'm in college. It's cool to be able to say that, and none of my other friends can say that. Like I don't know, I like it. It's way better.
So college is way better than high school. Thus far, it's been phenomenal. Like I love school like a lot. You know, I liked high school, but college is just like it's fabulous. But at OSU OKC, I'm a PLC scholar there, and so I don't really have to worry about financial, stuff, which actually bothered me a lot my senior year of high school until I got that scholarship, which was literally like the tail end of like my last semester. So that was interesting, like just like the stress, just like, once I even got the scholarships, I was just asking a million questions afterwards, like, wait, okay, so this pays for all of college, and like, I'm good, like, I can keep all my cash, so yeah, but being there, I'm also not a huge fan of science. Science is, it's evil. Literally, I have to take 2 years of, well, not 2 years, but two classes of science, and just the options were interesting. You have biology, nasty, chemistry, making abominations, physics, I have to take 1 year of math, let's keep it that way. And then there was this option like nutrition. I'm in nutrition. So yeah, there's just, a lot of options in college for what classes you want to take. And that's just, it's great. I keep saying, I wasn't prepared for this question. So another big thing about college is time management has been the only thing that has been somewhat of an issue. Like you go through high school and like all your time is structured, and you can do most of your studying like while you're at school. Like your classes isn't like all just like all this time is spent with you and the teacher going over, okay, here's the lesson, and then you go home and you do your homework. Most like high school classes were, and this was good, and I'm not saying this is bad, where your class is spent with, lecture. Maybe you have a bit of time at the end to do a homework assignment, or you have some class assignments during class, and if you don't complete it in class, well, you have it for homework, and then you go from there. In college, it's been like, all right, I'm going to spend an hour and 15 minutes listening to my math teacher go over A equals X plus B squared to whatever, and then I have to go home and do homework and all that. But you get to my first 2 weeks, I really was just like astounded by how much free time I had. I then realized that wasn't free time. So, yeah, that's been college, but it's been great. It's been great.
So to the STEM instructors in the audience, don't be discouraged. So I'm sitting here odd. I am sitting next to a future writer, romance novelist, to a future social worker, and a future child psychologist. And I am awed by each of your resilience. And I want you to know how incredibly brave it is to stand in front of such a large audience and share so much. So I was honored to be on the podium with you today, or to be on the stage with you. You've done a terrific job. And with that, I think that concludes our prepared part of the panel. We're not going to do Q&A because we want to make sure that the young people can continue to own their own stories in that manner. So thank you for being an attentive crowd, and thank you, the three of you, for doing such an extraordinary job.
Okay, and with that, we're going to break for lunch. So we're going to visit the exhibitors for the next 40 minutes or so, 40 minutes, and lunch will be served on your tables at 11:45. Okie doke?